Hey, what's going on, my friends? Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Victor, and today I'm going to share with you 10 signs that you're having a spiritual awakening. You're having an awakening experience, which can oftentimes have a lot of symptoms and signs that are a bit confusing, that you wouldn't necessarily immediately correlate with something positive like a spiritual awakening. So this video will share 10 different signs that if you're going through this process, you will resonate and relate to. And in doing so, it will hopefully, the purpose of this is to shift your perspective and help you view some of these things as having a very positive end result and implications. So I'll get right into these signs, okay? Number one is that your life seems to be kind of breaking down. That's what I would recite in my head as it was happening. That's sort of a vague way of explaining the multifaceted situation that you might be going through, where you just feel like your life was on some level at one time somewhat static, even though of course there's ups and downs and fluctuations obviously, but it was once, in a sense, compared to what's going on now, static. And you're all of a sudden feeling kind of like the boat is starting to rock, but the waves are crashing and your jobs are changing, relationships are shifting, your desires and just your core values are changing, which is causing your life feels like it's just coming apart. And it is, for a good reason. It's because that life was created from a less than authentic place, and now you're becoming more in tune with just who you really are underneath the conditioning. And as a result, all that is not truly a reflection of the real you is going to start to kind of crumble away. But as it happens, like, oh my goodness, what's going on? My life is so unstable. But again, it's something to be expected. It'll happen to varying degrees depending on how unconsciously you've lived your life. So it can be sort of extreme for some people. It can be more mild, but noticeable it will be for almost all of you. Number two is synchronicity. If you don't know what that word means, it just means that you're starting to get signs, like patterns. A lot of people see numbers on the clocks and on the radio dial and exit signs on the freeway and license plates and so forth. Just repetitive numbers, to the degree that it would cause you to probably look it up online and say, why am I seeing this same set of 3 or 4 numbers like several times a day? They start following you around to the point, again, where it's so noticeable that you can't help but say, what's going on? This is getting a bit trippy. This is getting a little bit weird. Like, what's with the numbers? God, universe. So this is just it's part of it. It's kind of helping. It has a lot of different purposes. Actually, I'm not going to get into that. But if you're starting to see repetitive numbers, hearing the same song on the radio, or that's maybe not the greatest example, but just reoccurring things in your life that happen at an alarming frequency and also carry with it an energy, almost like it's almost like you sense it's there to get your attention. Number 3 is emotional potency. You're just feeling emotional. You're feeling like whatever emotion you're feeling it more deeply. It's more of a physical experience. And so much so that it can be disruptive. It can make it hard to focus on your day-to-day life when you're feeling so just overwhelmed, just flooded with emotions that seem to be very random and not always in proportion to what's going on in your life. You can be just sitting there at a meeting at work or something, and all of a sudden you're like, you're panicking, you're sweating, you're like, whoa, why am I feeling this way? Or you're driving home from the bar, you just had a good time with your friends, and all of a sudden you're just like, you have to pull over because you have to cry. You're just sobbing for no apparent reason. But it's real. You're just sobbing, and you get into a fetal position in the back of your car, like, what the hell is going on? I was just hanging out with my buddies. Now I'm having like a meltdown. That's okay. That's normal. All those emotions have always been there, but you've done a good job at suppressing them. And even though they're out of the focal point of your conscious mind, they're still affecting you. Those emotions. We're very emotionally driven human beings. And even though it can be a little bit random and unpredictable and uncomfortable to just be bombarded with random waves of old emotions that feel so potent. It's actually because they're being released, they're being expelled and purged out of you. So, but as they do that, you have to you're aware of that going on, which is why it all kind of goes down that way. But again, it's the implication that those emotions, especially if they're unpleasant ones, they were always there and now they're coming out finally. Wild ups and downs on all levels. Emotions, yeah, for sure. You might have the experience I just talked about, the emotional purging, and then like 5 minutes later, you're like on cloud 9, feeling light and like just super passionate and pumped up, almost blissful and ecstatic at times. And it's, you wake up the next morning and you're like depressed. It's all over emotionally. Your life, you'll have times where you feel like life could not go any more smoothly and magically, like, oh my goodness, well, it's crazy. And then out of the blue, it's like the clouds roll in and you have a direct opposite experience. Not only are things not going smoothly, but now it's just the same effect in a negative way. Problem after inconvenience, and just a string of bad luck that just blows your mind. You'll also probably find a massive fluctuation in your confidence versus doubt, and just your level of optimism. On some days, oftentimes when you're connected, as I was explaining, when things are going well, not only are things going well, but you feel your body, your life, your consciousness feels connected and in the flow and just lighter and better. And from here, you realize that, wow, all these things I've always wanted to do in my life, I can do it. Because when you're connected, you know your power, you know your capability. The issue of confidence is not important because you're just naturally confident. It's not something you've cultivated. It's just who you actually are naturally can be very successful and happy in the world. But then as you kind of shift out of that temporarily, it's the exact opposite. Things aren't going well for you. You're faced with these intense emotions, and then also your degree of optimism and faith is just completely plummeted. And now it's like, oh my God, not only can I not achieve that dream that seemed so plausible last night, but I don't even think I can keep up with my life. My life is falling apart. It's a big mess, and I feel like a little child inside that has no capability or wits about myself to do anything about it, and therefore I just want to crawl in a hole. That kind of fluctuation. It's not just mild ups and downs like you get with life. It's drastic. There's days where you're firing on all cylinders at work. The next day you're like, I got to call in. I can't even leave the house. I don't even want to get out of bed. I'm just a mess on all levels. Number 5 is feeling totally just lost at times in a very like a macrocosmic way, not just in a particular situation, though there might be something that maybe is present that you're ruminating about. But I'm saying more like a lot of the things I was explaining is part of the old you, and then the reflection of that, which is the old aspects of your life just kind of falling away. You become quickly aware of what no longer works for you, what you no longer prefer. It can be within relationships, within a job situation, where you live, just your overall general attitude towards life. All of it, it's quickly like, this doesn't work. This is breaking apart. I don't like this. I don't like this. I don't like this. This sucks. But that begs the question, what do I like? Who am I? All I'm seeing is a lot of life examples that is revealing to me who I am not. So who am I? What do I want? And then it's like, I have no clue. And that's a very uncomfortable situation for a human being to be in, to have no clue, no sense of direction, no sense of purpose, not even that you don't know who you are. It's like you just don't know. There's just this void. And it's kind of got a depressing undertone because there's a part of you that feels, knows something is missing. And it is. So it seems. It's what's happening is you have to clear away all of this, and it can be sometimes lengthy periods of clearing away, and it can seem like nothing is going for you. But what will happen is once there's sufficient space and room, the real you will, at the perfect moment, present itself you'll reconnect, you'll have that faith restored, and then things go well again, and then it'll happen all over again. So it's okay when you find yourself feeling lost, allow yourself to be lost. Don't try to seek and recreate an identity out there in the real world. Allow yourself to just let go into that void, knowing that at some point the real you, when you actually need it to happen, will come back and remind you of the fact that you're on the right track. You are going in a positive direction, and just to kind of hang in there. A lot of physical symptoms that folks deal with. You might find yourself feeling like you're just not sleeping. You're just wide awake, wired. Not so much like you've had too much caffeine. You just feel not tired. You're just sitting in bed, staring at the ceiling, knowing that giving yourself another couple hours, it's just a slim chance you're actually going to fall asleep, and you might just lie wide awake for no apparent reason at all the whole night, totally randomly. You might feel really fatigued all the time. You'll find a lot of the things in your life that aren't ideal really just tax you mentally, physically. You just feel like your body, your mind is struggling to keep up with your life, your heavy life. You might feel older, worn out, achy, beat up. You know, it's just like, whoa, man, you're just kind of like, this in and of itself can lead people to going to the doctors or talking to somebody like, what's going on? I know I'm getting up there in age maybe, but I shouldn't feel this tired. I felt this way. I started going through this when I was in my early 20s, and I felt like, I would always say, I felt like I was 100 years old. Sometimes just getting off the couch to refill my water was like, oh, it was just so frustrating, just feeling that way, just feeling so tired for no reason. That the fact that there's really no thing you can correlate it with also would really make me worry a lot. But it's just part of this accelerated process, and it does wind itself down, and your energy and vitality will be restored in a much better way. But it can last a little while though. So if you're going through this, don't panic, it's fine. It's very common. Also, in addition to that, you might find that your food, what you like to eat, is changing. Your taste, your actual taste preferences, just the way you feel about certain foods is all over the place. There's a lot of other strange symptoms. Sometimes you'll feel energy kind of running through you. Actually feel the sensation, almost like electricity kind of buzzing through your body, ringing in the ears. All sorts of really unusual physical symptoms can very well play out when you're going through the spiritual awakening process. Despite all of what I just said, there's a component, and I think a necessary component, that makes it so people can actually get through this. It's a sense, varying in degree of noticeability, we'll say, but a sense nonetheless that this insanity is actually leading somewhere. You just have a knowing that it's for a purpose, it's going to be okay, you're going to be okay, and just to kind of be patient, ride it out, and this purpose will eventually reveal itself, and just be cool. It's very easy to disconnect from that when things are kind of happening really quickly, but you'll find yourself, when connected, especially when I mentioned you're connected in the flow, it's like, yeah, you know it's going somewhere. I'm saying even at times when you're feeling the opposite of that, oftentimes there's a subtle sense of knowing, like it's okay, it's going to be okay. I know I don't like it, but part of you knows you're going to be fine. Maybe not surprisingly, this is maybe one of the few symptoms that seem intuitive to a sense, to a degree, is that you're finding yourself drawn to learning more about spirituality. This doesn't have to be anything in particular at all. It's going to be whatever resonates with you at the time. It could be different religious texts you're going back through, and all of a sudden the meaning is popping out at you more. Or you might get into the meditation and just the metaphysics, maybe about, some people read about the ascension and the planetary energies and light workers and there's all sorts of different topics that you might be surprised that you're finding yourself naturally interested in. You're just like, wow, This is so weird. I would have never in a million years thought I'd be buying a book about Kundalini on Amazon, and yet that's all I want to do is read this book. And then once that book's done, it's immediately on to the next. Sometimes this can happen sort of like imposed upon you, like you're not really looking for anything, but this information will just find you. A random YouTube video pops up and something inside says, click that. I know it doesn't seem like something you normally click, but click it. And then as it plays, it's like, oh wow. Or you get a random email and the email's like, oh, this information will find you one way or the other, because as you come into your true nature is actually pretty spiritual, maybe to your surprise or whatever. You're pretty spiritual. A lot of these things are things you already kind of knew on a fundamental core level deep down, and now you're just kind of reminding yourself of what has always been there. Most of you become very empathic, where you can actually feel other people's emotions. And it's it can floor you at a time. Sometimes you feel other people's emotions as if they were your own emotions. And it just takes a number of circumstances where you realize that I don't no reason I should feel this way, but you look over and there's that guy. And he's exhibiting behaviors that matches perfectly what you're feeling, and it'll dawn on you, wow, that guy's really upset, and I'm just sitting here reading and I started feeling upset. And it's like that can kind of just start happening to you at like, whoa, this is like a new life issue to deal with. This is something I never had to really contend with before. But now as I go into work, it's like, oh, I'm gonna go talk to you. She's feeling good. Hey, what's up? It's like, it's a real thing, because initially you don't know how to separate you versus them. Sometimes it's confusing. Is this their emotions or are they my emotions? Eventually this discernment will just happen naturally, and you won't be so resistant or resistant towards other people's emotions. You'll be able to say, okay, that guy's in a mood, she's cool, and I'm staying away from him for the rest of my life. But there won't be you won't be like so overwhelmed, like you never want to leave the house. Eventually you'll come back around, and this will all happen like really quickly in your mind, and it just helps you create situations that are ideal for you. You rather than stumbling upon somebody, you can't sense they're in a bad mood, and then all of a sudden you're sucked into his dramatic life story that sucks the life out of you for the next 2 hours. You sense that from a distance, and you don't even go play that game. So it's a good thing. You're becoming aware of a lot more emotional data of other people, and that will just help improve your relations with people. But for a time, it is quite overwhelming for a lot of people. So don't worry. If you feel like you don't want to go out for a while, don't go out. It's going to adjust itself, I promise you. This one is sort of branches off of that sense of knowing it's going to be okay. There's this other part of you that wants to get to that point. Like you feel like your life is a puzzle now. Like you just got to figure it out. There's like, it's starting to kind of like almost make sense. Like things are coming together. It's like almost like life is trying to tell you something. And it's many things, not just one thing. It's there's always like have this like inquisitive mindset, this investigator type of mentality of trying to get to the bottom of like, why do I keep running into this situation, this cycle with always the same effect? You recognize these cycles, you recognize these patterns, and you try to break them, because some of them are good. I like this one, but this pattern is just, I keep getting duped. I keep making the same decision, which leads to this and this and this, and then this outcome that I just don't prefer. And it's like becoming obvious. Also, that there's that sense of wanting to find who you really are. Who am I? Why did I come here? What's my purpose? The idea of a purpose becomes sort of an issue. Like you want to find out. You sense that, you know that where you are is not where you want to be on many levels. But again, you don't know where or what you want to do, but you have this sense of like unrest, this sense of urgency to figure it out, because you know that maybe a more consistent state of happiness is going to be dependent upon finding these big life discoveries. For example, who are you? Why did you come? What will actually satisfy you in as far as your vocation, just your general life theme, etc. It all starts to change. and that undying need to align your life in a way that will feel harmonious is maybe your sole desire throughout this whole thing, because you're given such contrast of what it feels like when you are connected with yourself. Life goes beautifully, you feel beautiful, everything's beautiful, you're positive, you're loving, you're compassionate, you're not judgmental. And then the contrast is so sharp that it's like, I don't want to feel over here the opposite of that. I want to feel like that all the time. And you get a sense that that's kind of the direction you're heading in. And again, just that sensing of wanting to kind of figure it out is very common for those of you who are going through an awakening. And lastly, I have a little bonus one that is more relevant now at the time we're living in. As people start to spiritually awaken, they start to realize that it's not just them. There is something going on. There is a global transformation that you're starting to sense. Your process, you're starting to see out there in the world. And you start to know that the world that you grew up in is going through a massive change, a shift. And as you awaken, you become more hip to the specifics, I would say. But nonetheless, you know something is going on beyond just you and your own process. This process, again, is playing out in other people, in the world as a whole, and it's very profound. And you have a sensing of that. Where it will lead, you sense somewhere big and positive and almost mind-blowing, but it's kind of hard to put your finger on it. So I guess we'll just kind of wait and hang out and see where this all leads and see what happens. So anyways, I hope this video helped you. When I started going through all these symptoms, I panicked, I freaked. I wasn't aware that there was such a thing called a spiritual awakening. I thought I went to doctors, psychologists, I quit jobs abruptly. I made a lot of rash decisions based on the intensity of this process that no one enlightened me about. There was no one to say, hey man, this is something that can happen to you. So when it does happen, chill, it's good, you're fine, play it cool. Try to stay balanced, okay? I didn't. I made a lot of stupid mistakes and I created a lot of havoc in my life. So the purpose of this video is to help those of you who might not know you're going through an awakening, to help you see all these things as more of a positive encounter in your life, and then you can act accordingly and kind of roll with it. And the process will be not unchallenging, but it will be filled with just a lot of joy and a lot of pleasant self-discovery, and it can just be a lot smoother, I believe, than it was for me for a while there. So that's why I made this video. I hope it helps you a lot, and I will see you guys next time in my next video. Have an amazing day. Peace.